Okay, we are recording. Taylor, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. Whereabouts are we recording from today? Where are you?
So I'm in El Cerrito, California, which is in like the East Bay, San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, lovely. You got sunshine out there?
Normally, but it's pretty rainy today, which is
All right.
good. But yeah.
Okay. Well, look, before we get into your playlist, I just want to ask you, Taylor, how you found the sort of 2 year hiatus from life that was the lockdown period during the pandemic, and how you found that personally and creatively.
Yeah, it's been a strange time to say the least. I mean, I've basically been on tour since 2012 up until 2019. So that was basically just like my everyday life, and to have that put on hold. I mean, we were already kind of taking a break to start and write and record the next record, but then to just have everything kind of put on pause for 2+ years was really unexpected, and definitely found me doing a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out like what the rest of my life was going to look like. But the record's coming out, so I feel pretty excited and really excited to get back on the road. I definitely was burnt out like after the last record came out, and now just really ready to get back out there. And I really miss that part of my life. Yeah.
Speaking to so many sort of musicians and actors and such on this podcast, like it echoes what you said. So many people just kind of use that for reflection and to sort of take stock of things, and quite quickly realized that how much they missed playing live, how much they missed being out there and being on the road. And I've got to be honest, I don't know how you felt, but in the UK, even like a year and a half in, it was like, is it ever going to happen? Like, is it going to pick back up? I mean, I run a live venue, and I was thinking, like, when's this going to start again? Because venues were pretty much the first thing to close and the last thing to reopen. And so, without them, you guys ain't doing nothing. So it was a really strange time. And I think what's been good at the shows that I've been to now is that kind of hybrid of the bands being so excited to be playing live again, and met with the joy that people are witnessing live music again, and it sort of comes together, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Well, look, I'll tell you what. Let's move on to more sort of positive things, and let's bury the pandemic well over there, and talk about your song choices. I'm going to ask you, please, Taylor, for track one, to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Okay, yeah, this was hard, but I chose the song "I'm Lucky" by Joan Armatrading. I mean, I'm just a huge Joan Armatrading fan, which I got from my dad. He was also a big fan, and her CDs were always in constant rotation in my dad's car and on his stereo. And he actually would always play this one record of hers called Track Record, it's actually a compilation album. And yeah, this song, whenever it would come on, I mean, it just would always hit me. It's really sparse when it first starts. It's just the synth part, and then it slowly kind of builds. There's some bongos, and then it's her voice, just like very minimal percussion, like all drenched in like super 80s reverb. It just sounds so huge, and that's definitely enhanced by how minimal it is to start off. I don't know, every time I hear the song, I imagine myself just like walking through the halls of a stadium about to enter into the concert hall, and just like hearing that synth line from outside of the doors before before they open up. And I think the reason why I have that image actually is because my dad told me that he had that experience at one of her concerts. So I should check with him to make sure that that's true. But but yeah, so I don't know, I just love the song. Love Joan. It's great.
I hadn't heard it until you sent the list over, and I'm aware of like all of Joan's hits, and when I put that on today, obviously I was paying a lot of attention to the intro, and I never realised that Joan Armatrading had gone so synth heavy on some of the stuff. Like, you're so used to hearing lots of things like Love and Affection and stuff like that, and it being this gentle, you know, and even some of the early, you know, the 80s stuff, like, was it Drop the Pilot and things like that. It was like, hang on a minute, because that I don't know what synth it is. I don't know if you know what synth it is used on that, but it's really thick, isn't it? It almost sounds like kind of something you'd hear in Flash Gordon or something like that. It's like a really thick, heavy kind of spacey sound. It feels really nice as well. And
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up actually, what kind of synth it was, and I couldn't find anything. I think it's probably just like a Yamaha like DX7 or something, but really stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a lot of great session musicians that played on her records, and yeah, I love the synthy stuff. I mean, Drop the Pilot is probably my favorite song of hers, but yeah, I'm Lucky. It's just like, it's really romantic. It's funny, I was talking about doing this podcast with some friends of mine, and how, you know, the song choices that I was kind of turning around in my head, and we started listening to the song, and my friend was like, oh my god, this reminds me of my ex, it's really sad, we have to turn it off. Okay. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you, as a musician, Taylor, how you approach songwriting, essentially the intro, when writing that, and are there ever considerations for things such as Spotify playlists, getting on the radio, these kind of trends, getting on things like TikTok and things like that, where there's these short attention spans that are there? And, you know, do you ever consider them, or are you like, my song's going to be my song, it's going to take the shape that it takes? So how do you approach that? And
definitely do not consider streaming or TikTok when writing. It is something that I've started to think about after the fact, you know, after the album's out, and I'm like, oh, as I'm trying to like be more engaged in, you know, on social media, because that's just sadly a part of it. Like, how can I try to use some of those trends using our music? Still have not figured it out. I feel like I'm like over the hill. I don't quite get it. But no, I mean, when it comes to songwriting, primarily I usually just start writing on guitar. A lot of times just writing chord progressions, riffs, and then actually like vocals and melodies and lyrics come much later. But yeah, never with the consideration of Spotify playlists. Yeah, I don't know. Has anyone ever answered that question and been like, oh yeah, totally, I always write?
But I think, to be honest, like, those that do are primarily commercial pop artists that are very fashionable and are looking for that, you know, whatever's trending musically at them, you know, I shouldn't disregard them as saying not career artists, but people that are appealing to the right here, right now pop market. And
I mean, I think it would be a worthwhile experiment. Like, I'm not against the idea. Maybe it would be a fun thing to try. Like, I don't know, have you listened to the new Charlie XCX record, Crash?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's fantastic, but apparently the whole thing when she was going into making that album was, she was just like, I'm gonna like digest all of these trends and all of these different like pop tropes and like distill them into one record and just like make the most massive thing that I can. And it worked. I mean, I think it's cool. So yeah, I guess in the Charlie XCX vein, I'm into that idea.
Some of the guests I've had on that have been quite interesting, have had quite interesting takes on that, have been people that were formerly, you know, artists, whether they be indie bands and things like that, and are now pop songwriters, and now no longer in the public eye, but, you know, are actually having more success, you know, I imagine, and probably more financially rewarding writing for other people, and them discussing, like, as artists, that it was all about the song and, you know, and the art, and not to, you know, not to follow fashion and just to, you know, maintain their style. And then to hear them being brought in to write almost as if there's like a science to pop, and like, you know, you need to do this. You've got to start with a chorus. You've got to, and it's like, and hearing them sort of trying to, you know, and some of these people were like in like prolific shoegaze bands and things like that. And they're like, from having these massive soundscapes to like, shit, I've got like 2 minutes to like make this, you know, sweet hook ridden. And I think, you know, that's got to be as difficult to get that right as it is to create a 15-minute shoegaze masterpiece. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
I think
yeah, totally.
it's both unique in its own right. So yeah, it's a question that you know, anybody that's a songwriter, I'm always curious to hear how they approach that and what sort of filters into their creative process. But I'm going to take you back for track 2, Taylor, and ask you please to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Yeah, so for this question, it was pretty easy. I chose Life on Mars by David Bowie, which I would be surprised if hasn't already been an answer. But yeah, this is just another one that was like in my dad's CD collection. I mean, it's classic. It's just like a true ballad, super anthemic through and through, extremely dramatic. His vocal performance is incredible. It has all these key changes, and string parts are really like have complex chord changes. And yeah, I remember being like completely confused by the lyrics the first time I heard it. I was just like, what is he going on about? But then after listening to it on repeat, it really started to resonate with me. Especially because, yeah, his vocal performance just has so much emotion in it. But yeah, I mean, it's very existentialist and absurdist, you know, about escapism and disillusionment with entertainment and the modern day reality that we're all living in. And yeah, as a like angsty preteen, that really hit home for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just feels very like cathartic in this way. Like the type of emotion that it brings up for me is similar to the one that I experience when I watch like the Olympics or something, which is really like lame, but like I get really emotional watching people like persevere through something and reach this like endpoint where they succeeded, and it's just this like huge release. Like it always, and you just see someone that struggled so much.
Yeah.
That's not what the song is about, but that's kind of the way it feels listening to it.
You mentioned you know 2 tracks now that you draw, you know, your memories drawn from your dad's CD collection. Like let's talk about those, you know, those early years. Like where was home growing up, and was it a musical place?
Yeah, so I'm from the suburbs of Washington, D.C. I actually grew up in the house that my dad grew up in, so definitely from that area. I mean, my dad was very into music, and he was like a single parent father until I was 7. So we're super close. But he's not a musician himself, but he loves music. I mean, it was very like dad rock, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of like Steely Dan, a lot of classic rock, love Tom Petty. But then he also was into like Joan Armatrading and Shania Twain. It was pretty like eclectic. So yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question, yeah, DC is home for sure.
Yeah.
And I lived there up until, well, I went to college in New York, lived in Baltimore for a bit, and then was back in DC basically from 2012 until 2019. And then when COVID happened, my partner and I lost our jobs, and we had been talking about moving to LA. We were like, okay, well, we're actually making decent money from unemployment, like,
Yeah.
and we can just do it, you know, let's go. So we moved. But yeah, DC is still very important to me and will always be home. And actually Emma, my bandmate in Flasher, is still there. So yeah, I go back and forth pretty frequently.
Okay, well, let's stay in the formative years, and I'm sure it was where a majority of this took place. And tell me, please, for track 3, the song that reminds you of your time at school.
Okay, yeah, this one's kind of embarrassing, but it's so true. It is Get Low
Yeah.
by Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. Uh, I guess like the first crunk, you know, smash hit. Came out in 2003, so I was like 11 or 12. And it was just like a staple at every high school, or not high school, every dance through high school and middle school. Any house party. I mean, it was just like this song that you would play to drink out of a red Solo cup to. And it's fun. I mean, I still put it on from time to time if I'm like trying to get hyped up. Yeah, Lil Jon.
Tell me about school. How was it? Did you enjoy it?
No, I was not into school. I mean, I liked the social aspect of it, but I was not the best student. Um, Middle school was a very strange time trying to figure out. I mean, I think that's the case for most people, but yeah, I joke that like anytime I meet someone who says that like middle school is the best time of their life, I do not trust them, and I think they're like a sociopath because it is just like you're awkward going through puberty, you don't know who you are, you're trying on, yeah, all these different identities and figuring out what the rest of your life is going to look like, and you're just so filled with hormones and angst. So
Yeah.
yeah, middle school, not the best time. High school, yeah, like I said, I didn't love it, would skip school all the time, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Was you a
Yeah,
creative kid?
yeah, I would say I was creative. I was like very into art and music. um I mean, I would spend like hours on the computer downloading stuff from like, I mean, first Napster, and then it was like, what
LimeWire.
was it? LimeWire, Morpheus, Bear, you know, just hours like trying to find new music. And there was this website called Hype Machine. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, I
Yeah.
would like, that was very big for me. And
Fuck, I've not thought about a hype machine for years. That was amazing.
yeah, yeah, it was cool. And
Should
just,
get
yeah,
some
like
amazing remixes and that on there.
I know. I actually feel like when our last album came out, like Hype Machine was trying to rebrand in like more like a stereo gun type of thing.
Mm,
I haven't heard anything else, so I don't know if it worked
yeah.
out. But yeah, I mean that website was huge for me in terms of
Yeah.
finding out like new stuff that was coming out.
Did you know what you wanted to be when you was at school?
Um, I mean, I think by the time I was like 14, 15, I wanted to play music. Uh, then I also was like, well, what are the chances of that happening? Maybe I should go to art school. So that's what I went to college for and study graphic design. Um, but then I started playing music again and just like gave that a go. I mean, I think when I was really young, I was like, I want to be a firefighter or I want to
Yeah.
be a mad scientist, you know, that didn't really pan out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like playing music was always high up on the list. I never wanted to be like a lawyer or a doctor, which for better or for worse, you know, maybe I should
Yeah.
have.
Nah, it's way more fun being a musician. Um, Track 4. This should be the embarrassing one, not the last one. This is the one
Yeah.
this is the one where everyone's got you. I always like it when I get the list and people are brutally honest. I always like that.
Yeah.
When I first started this podcast, the second episode I did, I had Russell from Block Party on, and I thought, is he going to try and be too cool for school? And on this one, he was so honest. I was like, excellent. There's the benchmark there. Like, and from then on, everyone else has been brutally honest on this one. So let's find out what yours is.
It's funny that you brought up Block Party because I was about to put Little Thoughts by Block Party as the song that reminded me of my school days because I loved Block Party.
Oh, really?
I was like, I mean, yeah, that's why I bought a Telecaster, was because of Russell. I was just
wow.
like, I wanted to make music that sounded like them, which, you know, I can hear it somewhere hidden in there.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's funny that you brought them up. But the first song that I bought from Record Store was actually a CD. But the song that I wanted on that CD was Blue by Eiffel 65.
Yeah.
Off of their 1998 album Europop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it makes sense that to a 8-year-old, that was like the coolest song ever, because it's basically sounds like Teletubbies or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's very
Was the album called Europop?
Europop.
Amazing. Yeah. It literally does what it says on the tin. That's amazing.
Yeah, I bought that CD and Enema of the State by Blink-182 the same day.
Cool.
But,
oh, yeah. that's cooler.
I know, I went full embarrassing. Yeah.
Well, in those early years, talk to me about confidence. Like, was you a confident kid?
I mean, I was very outgoing. I was kind of like class clown, you know, but I feel like, as is the case for a lot of kids that are the class clown, it's because they're actually insecure, and it's like a way for you to feel like you belong and that people like you, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, I never like was super shy, and was outwardly pretty bubbly and charismatic, but internally I was sad, you know.
And as a musician, you know, walking out on stage and, you know, having people standing there staring at you, and you are, you know, going to then perform. Are you confident in that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I get nervous.
What's your routine? Tell me your routine before you walk on stage. Are you one of those guys that, like, you know, has like 15 nervous pisses before you walk on stage? And like, because when I used to do music, it was like, I've just got to go and have a quick piss, and then like, oh, I need another one, and I didn't. It was just nerves just going through me, and it was like
100%.
Yeah, so I'm just curious as to like what everybody's little routines are.
Yeah, I was gonna say go to the bathroom about 20 times. It's funny because like it's like me and all my bandmates going through the same thing. So we're like, get out of there! I have to go. So yeah, that, like, usually we'll like hug and huddle each other. You know, just huddle around before the set. Usually take a shot to calm the nerves is a thing. Which sometimes can go too far.
But
you know, we're older now. We're not gonna come out wasted on stage. But yeah, I try to like do some vocal warm-ups these days, because that does actually help.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of jump around and shake it out.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about jumping around and shaking it out, because for track 5, Taylor, I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that soundtracked your years clubbing. Okay.
So never really had like a true clubbing moment, but the song that I chose was Like a G6 by Far East Movement. The song came out in 2010, so this is when I was in college in New York, and it was just everywhere. I mean, it was like on the radio, it was playing at every bar. Anytime I went to like a dance night, the song was on. It's very silly, but for better or for worse, I still really like it. I just think it's fun. So a G6 turns out, because like I was like, what is a G6? Is it a plane? And when you Google it, it's actually like a G6 is a Pontiac car.
Oh, okay.
But they were referencing a G4, I think, which is a type of plane, but they were saying it's flyer. I mean, I guess flyer than a G4 didn't really quite rhyme. So they were like, we're going to go one, you know, we're going to go above a G4, it's a G6. Yeah. I mean, so in 2010, you was in New York. And so aside from clubbing, I imagine that there would have been like bars and things like this. Not that I'm disregarding your choice, but I'm also thinking, you referenced like Block Party there. I'm just thinking in 2010, the music that was finding its way to the UK from New York was in abundance. There was lots of exciting things like LCD Sound System, yes, you know, and stuff like that. You know, how was that sort of being around New York at that point? Was that on your radar, that sort of stuff, or was it? Yeah, definitely. I loved the yeahs, but I think that they had, like, by the time I got to New York, had basically like stopped putting out music, or maybe they had just put out that last record with that song Heads Will Roll on it. I wasn't like totally tapped into that. It was more like going to some of the smaller like rock clubs, like Death by Audio. There was a place called like Project Robot, and another venue called Market Hotel. There was this show promoter called Todd P that would put on a lot of like indie bands. So it was more in that vein. So yeah, that's like, I wouldn't really call that clubbing. Yeah, like the rock clubs, you know, going to see like Vivian Girls. That was another New York band that was big at that time. Waves was going doing his thing before he became a landlord or whatever. So yeah, that was kind of what was going on in New York for me. And I was like more into punk, but still like very tied to DC. So coming back a lot. And yeah, that was part of, I was like too poor to hang in New York with all of my schoolmates, you know, they were all just like, I feel like at least half of the students there were like kids from LA. That just had tons of money, and I couldn't really hang out with them, you know. Had like $100 every 2 weeks to live off of.
But I mean, it is weird when you look at privilege, and I'm always fascinated to sort of look at it in the arts, because certainly in the UK, so many of the most recognized and chart-topping bands and actors all come from money. And I find that's really sad, that, and it just comes down to the fact that so many in the UK, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but in the UK, you know, most bands try and gravitate towards London and the big cities to try and, you know, get on the gigging scene and such, you know, be closer to the labels and things like that. And it just feels that to be able to maintain that, you can't live in London. It costs too much money. And so many actors that I speak to were saying that, you know, we didn't know if it was going to happen, because I couldn't go to auditions every day because I had to go to work. And whereas if you're privileged, and don't get me wrong, you're born into whatever you're born into, and I'm not hating on that. But you do get them opportunities where you can just, if you've got money given to you and a roof over your head, you can then write a record. You know, you can then go to as many auditions as you want and not have to concern yourself with working, you know, 9 to 5 days a week to pay the bills. And I think a lot of people can't help but gravitate towards those. I do, like when you see like these working class bands or working class actors break through and have huge success. You know, you look at bands like the Arctic Monkeys in the UK that are just, you know, kids from council estates that you know certainly weren't privileged, and that's reflective in, you know, their lyrics and things like that. And I find, and I guess it's the same with hip hop as well. The early days of hip hop, you know, what they're singing about, it was poverty, and yeah, I think. Do you know I'm just having a rant? I don't know where I'm going with it, but but do you know what I mean? Like,
no, totally. I mean, that's definitely the experience, especially like, I mean, it's everywhere, but in indie rock for sure, it's like a lot of the bands that are able to go on tour at first, you know, they had to buy a van, and buying a van costs like $6,000 or $7,000 for one, you know, that may or may not make it across the country. And yeah, having money to record. I mean, nowadays it's like a lot easier to record. It's a lot more accessible, which I think is great. Yeah, I mean, I definitely used to feel really bitter about not coming from money, especially because I grew up in an area that is pretty affluent. And so like a lot of the people that I was around had a ton of money, you know, then went to New York. Obviously that I have like insane student debt from it, which was not the best decision, but like, you know, I wasn't paying for it out of pocket then. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go. But yeah, you know, grew up in this area that's very affluent, which I would not have been able to live there had I not had my dad not inherited his house, basically, we would not have been able to afford to be in that area. So I was always around people with money, and just would feel like very, just bitter about why didn't have those same circumstances. But at the end of the day, I was really lucky because the proximity to that, opened up doors that other people certainly don't have. I mean, not necessarily with the music, like just like, having a friend that has like a beach house and being able to go to that. I mean, things like that were really, really nice. It's cool though. In today's age, I feel like a lot less people are gravitate, or you don't see all the bands coming out of New York. It's really all over the place. Like there's like an amazing scene in Cincinnati, and just like all these small cities around the country. Kansas City has great music, Minneapolis, places where it's more affordable to live, and seeing those bands do really well. So I do think that's like changing a little bit, but privilege is privilege. And
okay. Let's take you home. Track 6, favorite song from an artist from your home county, please.
So for this one, I chose the song "Deformative" by the band Black Eyes. So Black Eyes was a post-hardcore band on Discord Records. I think this album came out in 2003 or 2004 was their first record. They only put out 2. It was the self-titled one. But yeah, bands like Black Eyes and Q Not You and The Faint were kind of my entry point into punk, because it was still very like danceable and dub influenced. They had 2 drum kits, but it was still very abrasive and jagged. And it was cool to like see the Discord bands that were like coming out at that time, because by the time I first listened to Fugazi, they had already broken up. But there were these other really cool post-hardcore bands making great music, and they were very like accessible to the young people in the scene. Like Hugh McElroy, who's the bass player of Black Eyes, actually recorded my high school band for free through this thing. I think he recorded like 2 songs, and I don't know how I found it, but there was this program that they were offering called the DC Free Recording Project, and I applied for it, and they, I don't know how many people have actually applied, but they accepted the band, and we went to Inner Ear Studios, which is like a legendary DC area recording studio. It's like where, I mean, almost all, not all, but like a lot of those Discord bands recorded. I mean, Fugazi, Q9U, Black Eyes. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So yeah, he recorded my shitty high school band, and then he recorded another band that I was in called Priests. And it was him and his ex-husband Kevin Erickson recorded 2 of the Priest records. So they were kind of like our like dads. And yeah, I just learned a lot from them. But yeah, this song in particular, lyrically, it's actually really dark. It's kind of about like sexual assault. And I remember, the first time I heard it, just not really processing what he was saying, and then kind of going back and being like, whoa, this is intense. But I love the like dual vocals.
There's such an urgency about it as well. Like it's incredible. And you touched on so many great bands there, and knowing that so many of them come from where you come from, did it always feel that like, my band can emulate this, people from where I'm from can do this? Like, did it feel possible?
Definitely. Yeah, DC was like a great place to grow up and play music. I mean, Ian Mackay was super accessible. Same with Ian Spinonius, like Hugh from Black Eyes, Chris Richards, who's in Q Not You. Now he's like the main music critic for the Washington Post, and he's really dialed into all the new bands that are going on and loves to like feature new and up and coming acts from the area. So having all of that at your fingertips is really great, and you can just like email these guys and they'll write back and hang out, and that they're at the shows, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really great.
Nice. Before we get to the last track, I asked about confidence earlier, and one of the things that you realizing that it's possible that you can, that the artists from where I'm from can do this. But like anything in music, it's very competitive. The industry is a competitive place to sustain and have a prolonged career within it. So, confidence aside, talk to me about drive.
Yeah, drive. It's like kind of like I was saying before, just about being go, go, go from like, I guess it was like 2011 till 2019. It was just like constantly on tour, practicing, recording. I mean, that was like all I did. And then having the pandemic hit right as I was like experiencing a burnout, I just kind of like stopped making music. I mean, we recorded this record, the new Flasher record, in the summer of 2020. And then like after we finished that, I kind of just like went into hibernation, was feeling totally uninspired basically. And that lasted for like a year. And I think I felt a lot of guilt about that, not having the drive to keep making music for a bit. And I got like a marketing job that was really soul sucking, and I think I kind of had to go through that in order to like rejuvenate the creative juices. And I feel like when people talk about drive, it's something that needs to be a straight line, that's always like a straight line trending upward or whatever. And I don't think that that's a lot of people's experiences, and accepting that sometimes it's a roller coaster, and sometimes there's a long dip where you're not at the top is okay. And thankfully I've come out of that, and I'm feeling a lot more excited. I mean, to be frank, I feel like not just for musicians but for everyone, I mean, everyone's asking themselves like, what is the point? In a lot of ways. And obviously the point of art and music, there isn't a point. That's not why we create. But I don't know, regaining that sort of inspiration and that drive is, I'm happy to be back in that place.
Good. Last track, and this is I'm going to take you down with the kids for this one, and you're going to be an influencer, I believe they're called in this day and age. For track 7, a song that you think many people may not know, Taylor, that you would like them to hear, please.
I chose the song Underground Waiting by the band Daisies. And this is a band that I feel like in a just world, they would be massive. I think that they are so good. Everything that they put out is so catchy. But they're, they haven't had their moment in the sun yet. But this is why we're influencing right now.
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, they need to, I don't know, go on tour or something. I feel like
are they on Spotify? I couldn't find them on Spotify.
Oh, really? It's on Spotify. I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like there's maybe like a bunch of bands called Daisies or something, and it's hard to find the right one. But it's a duo from Olympia, Washington. This song in particular came out, I think, in 2020 from an album called Daisies in the Studio with Rap Class, which I also don't know anything about Rap Class. I think it might just be like one of the members of the band. But as far as I understand, all the music is written and produced by this guy, Chris McDonald, who was in another project called TransFX that has put out a few records, one of which on a friend of mine's label called Perennial. It's super heavily inspired by like late 80s, early 90s, like rave and festival cultures and music.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds like a mix between like LFO, Saint Etienne, Happy Mondays,
Wow,
Lamb.
that'll do.
Yeah, like very like drum and bass, like very beat heavy, but just super, super catchy. Um, so yeah, this is the song I chose. And they also have another album called What Are You Waiting For that came out in 2019. It was hard to pick because I love that whole record too. But yeah, I'm gonna send them to you on Spotify because
Wonderful.
you'll be a fan.
Well, what we make it easy for people to go and explore that. Then, once you've sent that over, we put together a Spotify playlist of all of the songs that you've chosen, and obviously some flashy stuff on there as well. As this year is gathering speed, we're fast approaching the middle of the year already. As a you know, in 2022 being a far more joyous, connected, and creative space than the previous 2 years. With all of that in mind, Taylor, what are you looking forward to from the rest of this year personally, and what's going to be happening professionally?
Personally, I'm really looking forward to traveling this summer on tour, and also just like road tripping across the country with my partner. I'm really excited to go back on tour. We're going to be on the road in June doing like the East Coast and Midwest, and then we'll be on the West Coast in September, and then hopefully we'll get back over to Europe soon. We'll see. It's really hard to plan ahead.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I'm just really excited for people to hear this record. You know, we've been sitting on it for a while now, and I think it's a departure from the last one. Definitely a lot of new sounds that we're exploring. And the singer, or the drummer and also singer of the band, Flasher, Emma, is like way more in the spotlight on this record. We're, you know, kind of fronting the band on a lot of the songs, and I think it's for the better. I mean, she just has a beautiful voice and it's great. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear that.
Wonderful. And if people want to keep up to speed with tour dates, release schedules and such, where's the best place to keep up to speed?
We have a website. It's just flasher.band. But we have, you know, Instagram and Twitter, TikTok. We're trying to do that. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, you know, all the regular social medias.
Excellent.
Flasher.band. Yeah.
Oh, well, if you're all right with it, when we put this episode out, we'll tag all your socials in it as well, so people can go and explore the band if they've not done so already.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Taylor, it's been a real joy talking records with you today. Thanks loads for your time, and enjoy the summer, enjoy the touring and the road trips, and best of luck with the new music.
Thank you so much, Stu. Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Take it easy, bro.
Take care.
See you soon, man. Bye-bye.